You have one precious life. How will you make your money work for you? It's time for Sage Money Conversations, where your financial happiness and confidence are always the subject. Here's your host, certified financial planner, Barbara Norman.
Hello and welcome to Sage Money Conversations. I'm your host, Barbara Norman. Today we have a really special speaker on. I am super excited. We have Sandra Estok. Sandra is a corporate speaker. She's a trainer. She's a coach. She's been in this for 33 years. She has her book, Happily Ever Cyber, that is an international bestseller. Sandra, welcome to the show. Now, you kind of had a rough incident that got you into this. Tell our listeners your story because I'm flabbergasted by it.
Well, first of all, thank you, Barbara, for having me in your show. I love it. I'm so passionate about sharing this message. And to be honest, it's because this is personal to me. And we're going to be talking about cybersecurity, cyber safety, but in a way that is different. And yes, I can start with my story. You know, my story is super common. It's something that happens to many of us. And sometimes we don't think that it can happen to us until it does. Like me, I was very naive in the world. I didn't know anything about cybersecurity. I was in technology, but had no idea about this world. And it was in 2006. I was returning from visiting my mom. And I was in the plane when the captain announced that Homeland Security officers were boarding the plane. I didn't make anything, I took out my passport, I gave it to them, and suddenly I'm the only passenger being escorted out of the plane, Barbara, by Homeland Security. Yes, I will never forget that day walking through the airport in Miami with these two big officers, one each side of me. And I got to, there are so many things. Yeah, ask me. It is, for some reason, this is the odd. I'm thinking like, this is a VIP service, but it doesn't feel like VIP at all.
Yes, not the way you thought.
Yeah, but sometimes your mind wants to think positive, right? And I was like, well, I don't think so. So anyway, I went to that room and I did not know what was happening. My husband, Ricardo, was expecting me to arrive in Chicago. I was connecting my flight in a few hours, and I'm in the room. I'm about to miss my connecting flight when, there are so many thoughts coming through you at that moment. And to be honest, Barbara, for me, there was so much at stake as I was recently relocated from Venezuela to the United States. And it was my dream to be in this country. I love this country and I love my life. I love my job, everything that, that I had available to me. And, being in that room, it was all possible to just be gone in a split of a second. And, I'm thinking, am I going to be deported? What's going to happen? And, any situation, I think when we're in stress, we probably have those many pressuring moments and all the thoughts that come to you.
Why did they pull you, specifically you, off that plane, put you in that room? Like what was going on in that moment?
So in that moment, I did not know why, but later what I realized is that a cyber monster or smuggler, they call it cyber monsters, was smuggling women into the US using my identity. And that's why I was taking off that plane. Now, the things that happened and the nightmare that unfolded, I never thought I would be going through any of that. And it lasted 6 long years. And, Barbara, for me, that's why it's personal, because this situation almost broke my marriage, my career, and it took a severe toll of my mental health. It was a really rough time.
So how long were you in that room for? And what happened after that? How did you start unwinding this thing of, I'm not smuggling women?
Yeah. Well, in the room, I spent 10 hours. And
10 hours?
10 hours, and my passport was revoked. So we just have to rush out of the country and get back to Venezuela, where we had to go through the process again to get a new visa.
So they sent you
And
back to Venezuela. You didn't go home to Chicago to your husband. You went back to Venezuela.
No, I went home to Chicago and we had to immediately go back to Venezuela. Yeah. I had the opportunity to go home and just get things in place. My employer, because I was relocated, I was really thankful to have them, and I had a lot of support. And I went back to Venezuela, and in the interview was when I learned the news. And to be honest, I thought everything was fixed. So I came back to the US. I thought it was just a bad experience when they said, hey, this happened with this smuggler in China, but here's your, I convinced them, of course, I'm not a smuggler. I get my new passport, my new visa, and I'm thinking all is good.
How long did it take you to do that?
It took me about 2 weeks to be in the country to get that all sorted out. So I came back, and my job required me to travel a lot. I came back and I was back in a plane, landing in Chicago, when I had to go right back into the same room. And this was the story of my life for 6 years, every single time that I traveled. And Barbara, nobody wanted to travel with me, I have to say, not even my husband, no one. I mean, my coworkers, everyone, everyone avoided me, like I had something, there was something wrong with me. And it happened for 6 years. Now, back to your audience. I mean, yes, my situation, I was traveling, I have a visa, all of that, but this isn't an uncommon situation. I mean, the thing is, identity theft and cybercrime happens every single day. In fact, it happens every 2 seconds. There's a new victim. And cybercrime happens every 11 seconds. So the odds are pretty, substantial that it can happen to you or any of your listeners. And that's why I can share this message.
You had a TED Talk, and yes, the statistics shocked the heck out of me, because tell our listeners, dollar-wise, how this looks like if cybercrime was a GDP.
Oh, absolutely. If cybercrime were a country, it will be the 3rd largest economy after the United States and China. And it's shocking, but it's true, because it's an illegal business. It's the biggest illegal business that exists. And it's trillions and trillions of dollars that every single day move around the world.
And who's paying for that?
Well, sadly, it's all of us, because, there's so many forms of hacks, or so many forms of scams and data breaches. And when you see in the news, oh, this company lost their data. Let's say there was a massive breach in this bank or in this financial institution, and now 100 million people are affected. The behind of that is that now those 100 million records that include your social security number, your address, your email, your phone, all your personal information are for sale.
Oh no.
On the market. Yes. And that's how, it's like any type of business. Not a single company does everything. Somebody does the hack or the data breach, but then someone harvests from the hack and start the extortions or starts the identity theft or all the other crimes with that data. Okay, and they buy that data.
Sandra, let's start there. I think that's a good place to start, because I don't know anybody who hasn't gotten that awful letter that says, we got hacked, we're going to buy you a year or 2 of this insurance protection. Tell us, when we get that letter, what should we be doing for ourselves?
Yeah, that definitely, when you get that letter, whatever is whether it's a bank or whatever, a particular service that you were using, the first thing is, and I share this in my TED Talk, is just be very clear on your intention. Like, how am I going to use this information, and where I was using this account? Let's say it was your bank, and it's your primary bank, right? So you have to be very intentional, whether it's with your passwords, whether it's with how you were using that particular bank. What maybe that was where you have all your savings, or taking the actions to protect it. So that will be my advice.
So the first thing is then they're going to change their passwords.
Yeah, you could change your passwords. Before the technical part, I really want to talk about like just the moment you have that letter, pause for a second and just realize everything that surrounds that service or that thing that that now it's compromised. And maybe do an inventory in your head, like just be very clear into that, because getting into the action of changing one password only might not be enough.
Okay. What else do we do?
So I love this framework because it's called the BIM: be intentional, be aware, and be mindful. So what does that mean? So I'm intentional because now I get this letter. So my intention is I'm going to fix this, or I'm going to, protect my information, protect my family, or protect my business. Be aware means you're going to take that bank account. You are probably going to freeze your credit scores, right? You're going to check that there are no suspicious transactions that are there. You're going to check that there are no line of credits created on your behalf. I mean, these are just, I wish I can tell you all the things, but these are just few steps that you can take. And when you get that service, yes, it's like buying insurance. What they are offering you with that letter for 1 year of identity theft services, it just means that you bought an insurance that can help you if you have to go through the painful process to recover. But that service isn't going to protect you.
Got it.
So those are the steps. So there are so many steps. And for you, Barbara, I love in my website, I just had the 5 threats and what they are and what can you do about them. So I would just love your audience. I just put that out there for them.
So
because
tell us your website.
It's sandraestok.com. So then they can see.
Spell it.
Sandra Estok, ESTOK.com.
Good.
And because there are many things we can do. And yeah.
So those are the ones we can't control. It happened at the bank, or it happened at, because I use Target or because I use Home Depot, it just happened. I get no control. Now, there's a lot of people who actively participate in being scammed. Like the scammer reaches out directly to them. So talk about what we need to do in that situation. How do we protect ourselves there?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is my personal practice, I would say. So whenever I have a phone call and I don't recognize that number, I just don't answer. That's simple. Why? Because when you answer an unknown phone call, and let's say it's a robocall or a scammer, number one, you validated that you're a human behind that number. And now they can move you into another list of, oh, this is a real phone number, because there are millions of these phone calls that happen all over the world every single day. So answering is validating. Yeah, they can continue to scam or to try to scam you.
So if they call my phone and get my voicemail, has that just been validated has this just been?
No, usually if it goes to your voicemail, you didn't engage. So you don't, pass into that now a live person status, I would say.
Okay.
So that's what I do. I let them to leave me a voicemail, and you can use a service to filter those phone calls, and you can report those too. And the more we report these numbers and the more that we block them.
Well, how do we report? That's interesting. How do we report those numbers? I can block them, but how do I report them?
You can report them. So let's say there are services. Your phone provider might have a service. I know Verizon it's called filter call. AT&T has one. T-Mobile has one. So every single provider will have a tool that allow you to block those numbers and to report them.
Because I see I'm blocked, but does that automatically report if I block?
Not always. Not all the tools are the same. So one other way that you could report it is through the FTC. So let's say you have someone that is doing telemarketing and trying to scam you or asking you to do this business over and over, you can report them through the FTC.
Okay.
So there is a process, and you can just go through that, to the FTC website and do that report there if someone is trying to scam or coerce you to do something.
So that's our phone. So we either don't answer and or report, block.
Yes.
What are some of the other steps that people can take to protect themselves?
Again, I think having just the technology is amazing, but develop the habit of being intentional, how you use your technology, how you really interact, whether you are online, whether you are with social media, whether it's your phone, your computer, like what is the intention, and really focus on that intention. Like sometimes we try to multitask. I'm guilty. I've done that so many times, where you're trying to buy something online, where you are answering the email and you're on the phone, and just like, someone is calling you, and it's like you're trying to do so many things at the same time. Those are the moments where you can become very easy prey.
I think so. When we're rushed, when we're too busy, when we're tired and not paying attention, that's when we get, if you will, punked. That's when they find us.
Yeah, I share with you that I just recently had a car accident a few days ago, and I was hit from behind. And when the driver from that car came out of the car, the driver said, "I'm sorry, I was just so distracted."
Oh.
And it made me think so much into, my TED, because I talk about how distractions are poison to you and candy to cyber monsters. But the thing is, distractions are very dangerous, not only online. I mean, distractions can be certainly lethal. And, the world that we live in can change significantly when we become intentional, when we become aware, and when we become mindful, really present of what we're doing.
So, but scammers they're sharp. So I know that when I go on to Schwab, there you have now, and it's not just Schwab, but there's a lot of institutions who are saying, be careful, there's scammers out there who are calling you and saying they're from Schwab. So we get this call. Schwab calls us. That's where I've got all my investments, or Fidelity, doesn't matter. How do we screen to make sure that that person is really who they are and where they're coming from?
Again, back to the practices that I use. I never engage in a phone call I receive, because anyone can pretend to be somebody else. Because I don't know that, the best advice I can give you is never engage in incoming phone calls. Call them. Like if you need to talk to your financial institution, you have that phone number, whether it's in the back of your credit card, whether it's in your statements, call them. Like you can always let every phone call to go to voicemail.
Okay.
And call them.
But don't trust the voice.
Yeah, it's okay. Sometimes we feel rushed that we have to answer this text message or this phone call. And the reality is that we don't. We have a choice.
I think about all the scams, like the grandparent scam. Actually, one of my clients fell for that and sent $9,900 on a wire.
Yeah.
So there's that one, the IRS scam, when they hit you emotionally like that.
Absolutely. That's what they do. Cyber monsters know that when they play with our emotions, when they play with fear or with
loss,
it could be curiosity too. Sometimes like, wow, you won this amazing prize and you want to check it out. I mean, all the emotions, not only fear, can be used by cyber monsters. And we have a huge problem with romance scams, which affects so many. That means that someone pretends to be, a friend online, and they might be in a relationship with you for a long time. It could be months. And then that relationship.
Romance scams. Yes, I've heard about this, that they'll get on Facebook and they'll have, hey, I'm a developer in Saudi Arabia and I'm making all this money. Absolutely. And I'm going to come back and we're going to build your dream house in Rancho Santa Fe. Absolutely. And it'll go on for months. And then it's like, oh, I hit a snag. Could you just send me this money so I can get home and wrap this up?
We do. Yeah, it happens again because the emotional part is there, that emotion. And if we engage that, being intentional, be aware, and be mindful, I'm so sure the moment you start noticing how people talk to you or what they are saying to you, you will realize, oh, this isn't real. And you have that sixth sense.
Yep.
And just trust that, when something doesn't feel right, just don't ignore that.
Exactly. Now, you also have a book for kids. So,
Yeah.
think about kids as being victims of cybersecurity or scams. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I believe that children are the solution to the problem that we have with cybercrime. Because when we start developing their mindset, and my books are from 4 years old or even earlier than that. I have kids 2 years old using my books because they are coloring books, and you
Oh,
read them and they are fairy tale stories that we already know, like the Three Little Pigs. But instead of the house, they have a password. And, I have this story, this 4-year-old, she was coloring the book with her mom, and then she ran to her grandparents. Granny, Grandpa, are your passwords strong? I want to be like the piggy in this brick house. And so it was amazing because at 4 years old, she's talking about passwords. She doesn't know what a password is, but it's in her mind now. It's in the back, it started that programming that when you were a kid, your parents told you how to look at both sides of the road so it's safe before you cross the street. And it becomes second nature. Like you don't even think about as an adult, you just go, check both sides and then you cross. And that's exactly what I'm working on developing on the kids, that second nature, that it can be part of their way of thinking. And more they have that, the better our next generations will manage technology.
that's brilliant. And I know that the definition of strong password keeps getting stronger. Tell us today, what does a strong password look like?
A strong password, I love affirmations, Barbara. I try always to find a way to incorporate the things that I love the most into cyber, because it can be very dry and it can be very, technical at sometimes. And I don't like that. So instead, if you use practices that you love, I love affirmations. So my passwords is a long phrase, and that's one of the best practices today. So whether it is something that you're dreaming about, is a goal, or it's something that you appreciate in your life every day, if you create that phrase is not going to be in a dictionary. That phrase is not going to be something easily for cyber monsters to guess. And that phrase, you won't forget it, because it's something you really like.
I like that. So it's longer than 10 characters, but you still got to work in
Absolutely.
your characters and your numbers, right?
Yes, because some passwords will require you to have characters and numbers. So what I do is I replace letters. So if you have today is the best day of my life. And I like to say that to me every day, for example, or I am amazing, or, my health is better and better. Like whatever, phrase aligns with you and your goals. And if you replace numbers and you replace special characters, you can make a pretty significant.
So like an O could be a 0 and a Z could be a 2. And I like that.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And you just saying that over and over actually makes you happy.
Yeah, it does. Sandra, I'm curious because I would not want to be a kid growing up in today's world. The social media that they have, can you talk to us a little bit about how do we protect our kids from cyberbullying?
Yeah, it's for the parents out there, I totally understand that at time it can be scary. How you speak with your kids about technology, how do you engage them as a family, and how do you protect them? It's not as easy as when we were kids, Barbara, right? With that, your mom, you'll just bring you to your house and you're now safe, and she can do that. Now you could be home, you could be right there, but you could be exposed to so many things right there at your living room or in your bedroom because you're connected. So one thing, if you ever, as a parent, what I believe is having that communication opened and creating that cyber safety culture or cyber safety conversation in the family. I think that will be one of the best strategies, really, that your kids can tell you anything that happens to them, because then you can navigate with them whatever situations. Today, if you are experiencing cyberbullying or even a sextortion or things that happen online, going to your parent or going to your grandparents and trusting them, and sharing with them what's happening, they can help you navigate that. So kids can have that support from their parents. And what parents can do, I mean, so many things. Number one, take evidence or make screenshots. I mean, make sure that whatever is happening, that you do that, because in the future, that if you need to go back, whether it's court or school or anything, you're going to have that evidence. So always have that conversation with your kids and your families, that if anything happens, you can do a screenshot easily, or save that email, or save that information, because that's going to help you in the long run.
Because if someone's saying really something nasty about you, to memorialize that, poor kid.
It is, but I mean, like I said, it's if you delete it and ignore it, then it becomes your word against them, and it's more difficult to prove. So if you are going through that, that's why a parent or an adult figure that can help you with that will be the best advice, because they will, I mean, yes, it is sometimes really hard to read those comments and to see that, but having that evidence can make the difference to whether prosecute or take action. And even with the platforms, like if you can block them, like once you have that screenshot and you can just have that evidence, you can write, to any of the social media channels and say, hey, I'm having this kind of content, and they can block that person.
Good. Oh, good.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not suggesting you to endure all of that pain forever, but I'm just saying, if you experience that, get the evidence and then block that person and report it, because they will be taken down from the platforms too if they have that behavior.
Good. I like that. Let me ask you another question, because people have, like, we're on a screen right now, so sometimes I hear people that say, I put a Band-Aid or something over my camera, or like I have a sweet friend, her neighbor across the street will send her on over Alexa. He'll send songs over in the morning to wake her up. And I thought, okay, that's really cute, but that sounds really dangerous. So our home computer equipment, how do we protect ourselves there?
Yeah, absolutely. I love covering your camera when you're not using it. Absolutely. You never know.
Are they really there?
Yeah, somebody can be, and anything is hackable. Anything. I mean, if you read the news, they can hack into governments, into large corporations that really are spending a large amount of investment in security products, and they still, find a way to get there.
It's now, I don't crazy, because we had that Target corporation got hacked years ago. And when somebody asked, how did that happen? I heard that they actually tapped into the air conditioning.
Yep.
They got in through the air conditioning programming. Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah, because you have some banks or large companies will have a very robust system, but it's sometimes your third party or the third party vendors of your third party vendors who can create a hole for you. And at home, it can be that too. Like sometimes you are protecting your bank account. Like you're very good at protecting that and you have a good password, but you don't think that that email or that your Wi-Fi password is that important. And the thing is, those are really important because somebody can get through those to the other areas of your life, or your cloud services, or your emails. And, the many things that you have could be for you not that important, but for a cyber monster, definitely it's a great thing if they can get a hold of your passwords or a hold of your email, and now they might pretend to be you, scam other people. Yeah,
That is terrible. Sandra, so
yeah.
you've given us a ton of information. So in a nutshell, when you're telling someone, here's the 3 to 5 common sense steps that we would use, tell us in a nutshell, what would those be?
Yeah, I will say number 1, be intentional how you use technology. Really, like, whether you're in social media, whether you are on your bank account, you're shopping online, or you're just using your phone, like, be intentional. What are you doing? And realize that. And then be aware, like, if you are using your phone, be aware, what are the apps that you have? Where are you connecting your Wi-Fi? Who, are you in a public place? Are you in a private place? What are you doing? Like, be aware of what's surrounding you. And lastly, be mindful. And I call this the BIM, be intentional, be aware, and be mindful. Be mindful means be fully present. Like, don't try to multitask and do 50 different things at once, especially when you are about to click into something. I would just say pause for a few seconds, breathe, and then take that action. One last thing that I want to leave your audience, Barbara, with is they have a choice. We all do. And we are the only ones that can protect our information. There's no one coming to do it for you.
Right.
So the more we get into that mindset, and the more that we get in sync with how we use technology, the better, and the more protected, and the more we are to enjoy technology. Because, hiding or not being online, actually, it's not that safer.
It's not
Sometimes no.
Let me go to our second topic, and that is, and you've been through it, once you've been hacked, how do you start to clean this stuff up? How do you get your name back? How do you get your credit back?
Well, it's depending on the case, because not all the cases are the same. And I cover this actually in one of my programs. I really go into what can you do if it's only your credit card. Let's say that you have been hacked and somebody stole your credit card. I mean, the process is very different to when your whole social security and your bank and your address and all of that information is being available, and someone is committing fraud with your information. So, like, those are extreme cases. So there are many steps, and I think in the book I include some of that. I can give you one for now, and then you can go and check out the book and read the checklist that I included there that would allow you to clean up more. But if I give you one advice, super simple, that you can take, is freeze your credit scores, because that won't allow for someone to open more accounts or line of credits on your behalf. And if you have children, if you have grandchildren, do it for them too. We don't realize 1.5 million children's identities are stolen each year.
It's crazy. And it's something that the parents are never watching, because why would we? So
yeah, why? I mean, we wait until, when they are supposed to be building their credit, and their reality is sometimes their identities have been taken, and now you have to go through a very painful process to clean up that identity.
What a way to start life. Oh my gosh, not knowing that your identity had been stolen when you were 2 and now you're 18. That is great advice. So your book, Happily Ever Cyber, they can find that checklist of how do I start cleaning this thing up in your book, and your website. Tell us your website.
Sandra Estok, ESTOK.com.
So you have been a wealth of information. I can't say thank you enough. I'm sorry you went through it, but what a gift you are to all of us with that experience that you had to go through. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for having me. I love the message and I love how you care about protecting others. And thanks.
Thank you.
Advisory services are offered through Barbara J. Norman, LLC, an investment advisor in the states of California and Texas. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell, nor an offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of California, or where otherwise legally permitted. All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decisions. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to be complete analysis of the materials discussed. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of SagePath Solutions and are subject to change without notice.